It's going to be wild in the SEC. Tennessee and Georgia, and thanks for losing Florida to USF to make this week all that more interesting right here on College Football Kickoff. Welcome back to Fire TV's College Football Kickoff, presented by Coca-Cola. I'm your host, Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12, head of broadcaster for the Savannah Bananas organization, and we're coming in hot from the heart of college football country in Dallas, Texas. On set with me, two legends, 22-time Coach of the Year Gary Patterson and the former Dallas Cowboy and North Carolina Tar Heel Jesse Holley. Every week throughout the season, we'll be right here breaking down the matchups, the moments, and the madness with elite insight from experts across the nation. Look for new episodes every Thursday on your Fire TV and Echo Show devices. This is your all-access pass to the weekend ahead in college football. Let's kick it off, and let's do it with the number 18 South Florida Bulls. It's time for our rankings report. Gentlemen, 2 wins for South Florida and 2 wins to define a program. They go against Boise State and beat a top 25 team. Then on the road against Florida. Jesse, are we overvaluing USF based on just 2 games?
No, you got to give them for what they're worth. They went out there, They won those 2 football games against 2 ranked opponents. And if they get this weekend with the W, they met some elite competition. Only 4 other teams in college football history have gone back-to-back wins versus ranked opponents.
You know, I love them because being at TCU when we first started, we were the underdogs. Yeah. Trying to get into the 4 playoff positions. You know, South Florida sits in a situation where they can play themselves in. It's a lot better access than what it used to be, and so I'm cheering for them because it's exciting for me to see how their coach handles things and also see how their players have handled it.
Yeah, looking at the 11 through 25 mark, what stands out the most to me, we saw Alabama take a tough loss to Florida State, a team that was 2-10 last season. And then, Jesse, we just watched Arizona State go on the road in the SEC in a night environment, and the Big 12 champions lost and were dropped completely out of the rankings, much less bumped a couple of spots. The AP poll had no mercy for the Sun Devils.
No, absolutely. And sometimes your reputation precedes you, right?
Sure.
So people look at Alabama and they're the SEC kings for a long time under Nick Saban. And so they get that advantage to have a little bit of leeway in how they're scheduling. But Arizona State, they made a nice run last year, but they lose a lot of pieces. And so when you look at the schedule that they have, do they have the wins in there that can kind of bump it back up in there? Are they worth watching on TV? It's like a lot of these rankings have to do whether I want to see you in that top 25. Are you worth watching on TV? Will you get the fan base to come out? So for Arizona State, it's going to be tough to get back in that top 25 with those early losses.
Yeah, and I'm one of those guys that watch coaches when they do their interviews. And, their head coach, Dillingham, has been on them about need more energy, playing harder, and doing things. So I think probably coaches and writers have kind of looked at it and said, hey, this team needs to get going. We need to show them. It's not because they still got votes, but we need to show them that, you just can't show up and you just can't be a part of it. If you want to be one of the top 25 best teams in the nation, you better start playing better.
Yeah, I was surprised to see them bumped out. We see a couple of SEC teams come in. 11, that's a record for SEC teams. Why not just rank Vanderbilt and Arkansas and the rest of them, Jesse? I mean, it's pretty crazy to see not just the record, but at 11, 24, and 25, Auburn and Missouri sneak in after big wins against coach Big 12 teams.
Well, yeah, I thought the Kansas-Missouri game was a great ball game.
Yeah.
And it was at Missouri, hostile environment. I thought it boded well for Kansas. I was kind of mixed on the whole game as far as Missouri was concerned. But I would tell you, I wouldn't count Arkansas or Vanderbilt out. I think they both have a chance to make some noise here going forward in a couple weeks.
Yeah, it's as deep of a league as maybe we've seen it. And I think as deep of college football as we've seen it again. You're looking at an Alabama team that this week had a statement. They proved themselves in their, I say proved themselves, they proved that they played ticked off, and an Arizona State team that will try to do the exact same thing when they come out here this week. Let's go to the biggest matchup in the country. That's a lot of banter about where the top 25 sits, but these are 2 teams that sit pretty out of the SEC, Georgia, Tennessee. It's time for our game of the week. The game of the week here on College Football Kickoff, presented by Coca-Cola. We have Clint Shamblin of Locked On Bulldogs, Eric Kane of Locked On Vols. Clint, Are the Bulldogs as good as they were a couple of seasons ago when they won the national championship? Can they get back to glory? And does a win against Tennessee prove that?
I think this game will prove one thing very, very dramatically, and that's the defense. Kirby Smart has said defense in the trenches, tackling is key. If you look back at the national championship winners the last 5 years, top 5 defense. 21, 22, we didn't know those names before they hit first round grades. These no-name dogs on defense are that exact same team. C.J. Allen, Raylan Wilson, Chris Cole, if you don't know that name, know it now. That guy's a terror off the outside. Coming for quarterback sacks and get in the backfield. Offensively, I think we're going to be just fine. Running the football with a 3-headed attack against Tennessee, we're going to dominate and get back to that status, yes.
Oh, what's that, Eric Kane? Did you say that's a bunch of bull malarkey? Was that? Can you say it with your chest? Anything that Clint said that stands out as very untrue?
I mean, Georgia's won 8 straight in this series, so it's kind of hard to argue. But no, I mean, I think Georgia's a good team. There's still a lot that I don't know about Georgia. I think there's some you don't know about Tennessee. It's early in the season. It's kind of weird for these two teams to be meeting so early. But, Georgia's going to be a tremendous challenge on the defensive end, always having good linebackers. C.J. Allen's been there forever. He mentioned Chris Cole. They brought interior pressure from those backers in years past. And, I mean, Nico Iamaleava was sacked 6 times in this matchup last year. Tennessee was able to run the football efficiently but couldn't do anything through the air. So can Tennessee get after the opposing quarterback early, rattle him in his first SEC start, and, of course, get things going with a new quarterback in their own right, Joey Aguilar, behind the home crowd? We'll see. That line's really, really close, and it should be a good one.
Clint, this reminds me vaguely of when Tennessee knocked off Alabama at home a couple of years ago, and it felt like the monkey off your back. Another night game, or make it afternoon game for this one in Knoxville. Makes it a little bit different, though. Do you feel that almost je ne sais quoi of when Tennessee knocked off the Crimson Tide?
I think Tennessee had a much better team at that point matchup-wise against Alabama. We see a couple of defensive backs who have played well in the first 2 weeks for Tennessee, but Redmond's going to get tested. We saw last week when Gunnar Stockton saw 6-7-yard cushion, he went to the screen, got in the hands of Zachariah Branch, who's quicker than quick, and he's going to get up the field. So I do think matchup-wise it's a little bit different. Tennessee certainly hopes it is that feel, and this is going to be a raucous environment. First start on the road, Gunnar Stockton, the SEC. It's going to come down to, can the offensive line protect him? And this just in, Tennessee didn't lose a great defense. They still have very, very, very good up front 7 pieces to pressure that banged up, hurt offensive line.
Yeah, Kane, we'll end this one with you. If Tennessee is going to win it, what's the one X factor that the nation's not talking about?
Yeah, I think when you, and I talked to Clint about this earlier this week, Kirby Smart does such a great job defensively. He's a defensive-minded coach, defensive backs. Those corners, man, in these matchups, and 4 years under Josh Heupel, the corners for Georgia have just, they whipped Tennessee's receivers. Press man coverage, can't get off the line of scrimmage. I'm looking at that matchup. Of course, you got to protect the quarterback first and foremost to have an opportunity, but can Tennessee's wide receivers get off those press man coverages, get down the field, go make a play? Mike Matthews, Braylon Staley, Chris Brazel. I'm interested in seeing that because the last 4 matchups, it's like Tennessee really didn't have a chance to even have a chunk play because they were just getting beat the line of scrimmage. So I think that's something that a lot of people might not be looking for, but it's been pretty dominant in Georgia's favor these first couple of matchups.
They are the experts. It is Clint Shamblin of Locked On Bulldogs, Eric Kane of Locked On Vols. Thank you both for being here. Not only are they experts, but they're big fans. And being a passionate fan is hard work. All the pomp and circumstance makes you work up a thirst. Fan work is thirsty work. Enjoy a refreshing Coca-Cola. Today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. The reason it's brought to you by DoorDash is because I, as a human being, love it. Time to look back, crown this week's MVP on who delivered. And you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving every time you order. These players delivered. Sawyer Robertson of the Baylor Bears delivered in a big way against SMU, coming back and winning the game in Dallas. No hesitation, no delay. Sawyer Robertson, he's on a streak. Just like Sawyer delivered for the Baylor Bears, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays with DoorDash streaks. You save every Saturday with your order, stack it up all season, save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period beginning and finishing. Beginning now. Finishing through November 18th. That is DoorDash. Coach, I want to start with you here. Tennessee reminds me of Ole Miss or Oregon, kind of the big engine that could until they couldn't anymore. They're the team that gets to the playoff and then they fall apart. They can't win the big one in the regular season. Is that still the vibe in Knoxville?
I think Aguilar, the quarterback, he's older. I think it's going to help him instead of a freshman they had a year ago. Both teams are big on defense. They're both fast. I think it plays the advantage of Tennessee having the energy of the crowd. Georgia is going to have to, what we just heard, I think Georgia has to be able to run the football to protect their young quarterback on the road, first game of the season. And Tennessee's got to be able to get their wide receivers off. If they can throw the ball and be as explosive as they've been in the last couple of weeks, then I think Tennessee has their first time getting after the Bulldogs in a while.
Yeah, Jesse, that's the question I'm asking about Tennessee, but is Georgia really Georgia right now?
They may not be the Georgia of old, but they still have Georgia of old components, and mainly being defense, because you have to understand, two things travel, a running game and defense. And right now, I'll read these numbers off to you. Georgia defense is elite. They're only allowing 201 yards per game and only 6.5 points per game. And they're getting off the field on third down. Teams aren't converting third downs on them. So if you're able to do that on the road, you don't allow teams to have extended drives. You calm the crowd, you get off the field, and you give your offense opportunities to go out there and make plays.
I just double-checked to build off of your note. Georgia has played William and Mary. William in week 1 and Mary in week 2.
Yeah, sure.
So of course they're holding.
Good practice. It's good practice.
They're holding the red and white teams to 201 yards of offense. This is their first big test. The same thing for Tennessee. Coach, if you get 2 weeks of smaller opponents or smaller schools going into a big matchup, how does it prepare you, and is there any way to truly prepare your guys for this?
Well, yeah, but I think I saw 600-plus total yards they're averaging a game. That means your defense is on the field a whole lot more than they're off, whereas Georgia runs the football. I think Tennessee has to decide with the quarterback, get away from the pressure. How do we get away from the pressure? Do we boot? Do we get outside of everything? Do we make them have to think? And to be honest with you, I think it's time for Tennessee's defense to step up in a big ball game and get the ball back. I think if Tennessee does that, they're in Knoxville. I think they have an opportunity to make this game. And if they win this one, then you set everything out of balance.
Yeah, I'll be glued to this matchup, but especially glued to one that I think the rest of the country might be forgetting or overlooking, because the South Florida Bulls are legit. Don't count them out. It's time for our can't miss matchup preview. He is the local expert. It is Alex Dono of Locked On Canes. Dono, it's a massive matchup, and it wasn't supposed to be. Call it 2007 all over again. South Florida might just be a game.
Yeah, people are starting to call the USF Bulls America's team. They're America's Cinderella right now. And, you know, I'm sure that when USF fans and people across the country looked at their schedule to open up the season against then 25th ranked Boise State, followed by at the Swamp against the top 15 Florida team, they probably didn't expect the South Florida Bulls to be number 18 coming down to number 5 Miami, but here we are.
Yeah, Dono, Carson Beck came in against Notre Dame and was as good as advertised when needed. Is he good enough to not just win the ACC, but take Miami past this game and to the college football playoff?
I believe he is. Something that I've noticed since I first started to watch him practice back in early August, he's truly a perfect fit for Shannon Dawson's offense because he gets rid of the football quickly. He processes well. He's not afraid to take the check down, which is a lot different from Cam Ward last year, who obviously had a spectacular season, of course, but Cam Ward was a home run hitter. Carson doesn't mind hitting singles and doubles. And I especially think in a game like this, where South Florida did a pretty good job taking the deep ball away from DJ Lagway, Carson Beck being willing to take what the defense gives him, I think is going to go a long way in this game. And based on the way that Beck has played so far, Drake, obviously the 2-0 start with the significant win being against Notre Dame, but no interceptions thrown so far. He's taken care of the football. He's really playing with a chip on his shoulder, and so far he's been really good at the U.
Dono, give me a quick final score projection.
Yeah, so it's a huge spread. I'm looking at it at 17.5 Miami favored. I think it's a big number. I'm looking at Miami probably 31-17 in this game, with the big difference being the line of scrimmage. I think Miami's offensive line that's lived up to the billing so far is going to be able to get enough push against the USF D line. And I think Miami's pass rush led by Ruben Bain is going to be able to get enough done. The key for the defense is going to be slowing Byron Brown down from running. He does that very well, but I think Miami's got enough talent to pull this off, and they're not going to take South Florida lightly after what the Bulls just did to Florida. So can't even call this a trap game anymore. 31-17 Canes.
That is Alex Dono of Locked On Canes. Dono, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Coach, you mentioned it. You've been in USF's shoes a time or two. The last win they had against Miami was 6-3 in 2011. I've slept since then. How do you prepare for a juggernaut like Miami on the road?
Well, number one, they have the advantage. I don't think that they feel like they have any pressure. They've already shown 2 weeks in a row. They played good competition. And so I don't think they're worried about coming in. They've gone on the road into the swamp. They're not going to feel like it's going to be a tougher environment than what they just did. And then their quarterback also didn't play early in that ball game. South Florida's didn't because something that went on outside of football. So I would have to think that they're way excited and just do what they do.
Jesse, quickly, you've been an underdog as a player before. How do you keep from getting too hyped up going into a game like this and missing assignment?
Not only being an underdog, I've been an underdog against the Canes, who came into Chapel Hill, who we beat. But the thing is that you're playing with house money. You understand that you're not supposed to win this game. Nobody is counting you in the winning side. Look at the point total. Look what happened last year to you against this football team. So you throw all caution to the wind and you say, what do we have to lose? Yeah. We have everything to gain here. So you play fresh, you play free, and you let everything hang out. And you see at the end of the game if you can come up with a victory.
I was the underdog in my third grade spelling bee.
Okay.
I hope this thing goes way better for South Florida.
What was your word?
It was like apple. I mean, we were really not doing too hot in third grade. A lot's changed since then. Let's go into a bit. Last week, Coach, we talked about money in college athletics. Really, the entire premise of Coach's Corner has been a bunch about money. And not that it is the focus here, but it's going to be involved. Let's talk transfer portal with a little Coach's Corner.
You know, there's two topics in college football that everybody wants to talk about. That's NIL and portal. Everybody has their opinion, bad or good. What I want to talk about is the good. I think everybody believes that there needs to be a little bit more structure, but there's one position in college football that I think has benefited from the portal, and that's the quarterback. You know, everybody has basically signed and tried to mature 4 to 5 quarterbacks through their years. And that was the one position, if you left, you had to sit out and you couldn't play for a couple years and do things. I think we have found that in college football and in the NFL, that quarterbacks being able to move around quickly, find a place that they belong, where they're needed, has really been a positive. And I'll give you 3 or 4 or 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. And let's just talk about Oklahoma guys. Let's talk about Jalen Hurts, Kyler Murray, and Baker Mayfield. Not only with them, if you want to throw a side note, even though he left, Caleb Williams, and then also talk about Bo Nix and Cam Ward. All those guys I coached against 4 out of the 5 of those guys in college. There's no surprise to me that they're doing better in the pros. So now let's talk about the top 25. Let's talk about the top 2025 top quarterbacks in the portal this year. Let's talk about John Mateer. Now, understandably, Oklahoma now comes to the top of the space again because he came with his coordinator. It was a big deal. They were a partnership, and after 2 weeks, it looks like it's already been an advantage. Tommy Castellanos has showed up at Florida State, and they went from a 2-10 football team to where now they're ranked in the top 15. Devin Dampier from New Mexico to Utah. They look like an exciting offense. You go with the defense of Utah. Jackson Arnold at Auburn running the football has really made a big difference in the first 2 weeks. Carson Beck to the Canes, and then Joey Aguilar to Tennessee. I would have to say that trade, him going to Tennessee, has been a big deal. What do you think, Jesse?
Well, for me, when you look at this thing, you need a quarterback. All right, that's the first things first. But I remember Matt Rule said this a couple years ago. He talked about the going rate for a quarterback in NCAA is about $1.5 million to $2 million. That's the starting point. Yeah. And the pot is only getting richer because now you're looking at how things are going to go in the college football playoff. You have 12 teams in there now, and coaches understand there's bonuses tied to that, Coach. You know all about that one, right? And so if I have a quarterback, if I have the point guard of my offense, then I have a chance. And when you don't have one, now you find yourself fishing for wins, trying to find wins. So I think when you look at this thing from a lot of different perspectives, is it portal? Is it NIL? Is it loyalty? Is it fit? All these things, I feel like a lot of it has to do with the dollar bill, y'all.
Well, think about this. We're talking about loyalty. If I work, let's use 2 accounting firms, KPMG or Merrill Lynch, right? and one of them offers me $1 million, the other one offers me $3 million. What about, at that point, my loyalty is to generational wealth, to my family.
It's to Andrew. It's to it's to Andrew Jackson. It's to Ben Franklin. It's to all those guys.
100%. I mean, it's some level, and I don't want college football to become that necessarily, this business of, oh, you're just an accounting firm. But at a level, there is an opportunity if you're Cam Ward to go make a name for yourself out of a small school, then be a runner-up for the Heisman, go first overall in the draft. And, Coach, maybe the only downside from a fan perspective is if I look at guys like, Ryan Mallett at Arkansas, right? He became this cult hero, this legend. Or I go over to A.J. McCarron in Alabama, Andy Dalton, who you coached. Fans are buying those jerseys. That's who they want to wear. Today, you best not buy a jersey because that thing's probably worthless in 6 months.
I would say that everything that you guys have said is true. But I would also say that in a lot of these guys' cases, they went to a situation where there was a need and there was a certain culture. Some of them followed their coordinator, some of them followed their head coach. I would say that, you want to go somewhere where you can, your stock rises, that you're going to be better. I mean, you look at Bo Nix from Auburn to Oregon, 2 unbelievable years. Cam Ward from Incarnate Word to Washington State, then to Miami, and how that all progresses. Yeah, everything, he made all of that work. But at the end of the day, all these guys, the thing that I think is kind of cool, and I know that they got paid, but I think all of them chose because they knew it was going to be a better fit. They knew they had an opportunity to be better on a national stage and get an opportunity for their stock to rise. And because that happened, I think all of them, and you're going to see quarterbacks later on here now as we go forward, keep making those kind of decisions.
I personally own a TJ Finley, LSU, Auburn, Texas State, Western Kentucky, and Georgia State jersey. So I spent a lot of money on TJ Finley at the quarterback position over my time. That's good stuff, Coach. Thank you for the perspective. The quarterbacks, I know that it's changed the way college football has worked, but it's saved, I think, a lot of young athletes that could have been buried in the game that got to rise to the top. Let's go take a different direction and back into this week specifically with some of our bigger matchups. And this week, maybe it hits, guys. It's our lock of the week. What do we got?
Thanks, Drake. After a wild week 2, we have another lock for this week.
Open it, open it, open it. Lee has the key to the lock of the day.
Big game in the SEC coming up on Saturday. The Florida Gators and the LSU Tigers hooking up in Baton Rouge. The Gators looking to bounce back from last week's loss to USF. LSU comes in at 2-0. Lee, what do you like here in this SEC showdown?
Well, it's interesting that both of these coaches were hired 4 years ago. Obviously, Brian Kelly comes over from Notre Dame, but Billy Napier came over from Sun Belt Conference, Louisiana Lafayette, had a stellar career there. Well, maybe he should have stayed there. He's just 20-20 so far at Florida. He had a huge upset last year when they beat LSU. He was probably a half away from getting fired. His team rallied in that game and won the game 27-16, ended up with an 8-5 record. Things started well this year. They beat Long Island 55-0. And then last weekend, things came crashing down against South Florida. They lost the game at home and committed 11 penalties doing so for over 100 yards. I also suspect DJ Lagway, their quarterback, who was injured in fall camp, isn't 100%. Now, LSU, I think they're laying in the weeds here. After beating Clemson first weekend in a huge upset in the other Death Valley, they just went through the motions last week against Louisiana Tech. They showed absolutely nothing. This is their revenge game, the game last year that cost them from getting into the college football playoff. Love their team speed, especially at linebackers, which play like defensive backs here. So Death Valley, if you're not playing at a high level and also you're not disciplined, it'll swallow you whole here. Revenge, revenge, revenge. Goodbye, Billy here. Sunbelt Billy, maybe no more in another 3 to 4 weeks. LSU is my lock of the week, 31-14.
And for more daily picks, subscribe to Locked On Bets. Back to the College Football Kickoff studio. We'll see you next week, Drake.
Today's show is brought to you by Mazda Standard. The reason that I now drive a Mazda is thanks to Mazda Standard. They deliver confidence with every single drive. Mazda is my preferred vehicle because they have more awards than anyone else as of August in 2025 in the IIHS top safety pick. Footwork to breath work. Athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings the same intention to how they craft every model. Feel Japanese craftsmanship in every detail, from the metallic accents to available Napa leather upholstery. You can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls, all-wheel drive as well, and SUVs. Like our players, we sweat every day. Because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved, and do it with Mazda. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is exactly where I go to win a little bit of money. I go in there and I tell FanDuel, I said, hey, I think the BYU Cougars will cover against Stanford, and they did, and FanDuel gave me money instantly right now. New customers can bet $5, and if your bet wins, get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because I can go into my favorite best bets that are released every Thursday, today, on the Big 12, Locked On Big 12 channel, and I can make those picks on FanDuel, and FanDuel pays me. Makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup with the NFL. So if you're ready to play, download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet. Do it today.
Thank you, Kevin, and I agree with you, Lee. And if I didn't agree with you, I'd be scared for my knees. Let's go from our lock of the week to our playoff playbook. Lest we forget, you love Lee Sterling.
I love him. That is my favorite segment of the day. I look forward each and every week. Lee, I look forward to seeing you each and every week, brother. Just know, I know the white walls on the Cadillac is parked out front, and it is clean.
He sends his best to the missus.
I do.
He really does. He really does. As we go into the playoff playbook, we have skipped over so far Notre Dame, who gets to host Texas A&M this week. Coach, these are two different cultures kind of clashing right here. You don't often get to see this matchup.
Well, in Notre Dame's case, they've got an edge to them. It didn't turn out the way they wanted it to. They've got a really good football team. They get back to run. So with the home crowd, nobody there wants to lose and get to a second loss. So you're going to see a different Notre Dame team come out.
He's the expert, Locked On Aggies. Matt Galatson, talking all things Texas A&M, has a different take on how the Aggies can win this game.
Hey there, this is Matt Galatson from Locked On Aggies. And what does Texas A&M need to do to win against Notre Dame? It's pretty easy for me. I think they just need to run the football and stop the run. This Texas A&M team has struggled early on in the season to stop the run. They cleaned it up against Utah State. I think that if they're able to do that against Notre Dame, slow down Jeremiah Love, slow down Jarian Price, it's going to make things a lot easier for their defense to kind of control the narrative of that football game and the momentum of that football game. And they also need to run the football. Again, week 1 against UTSA, they struggled to do that. Week 2 against Utah State, they ran the football down the Aggies' throat. It's a critical part of their offense. It allows things to open up for Marcel Reed. It allows things to open up for those explosive wide receivers. If they can do those two things, I think that they're going to be very, very successful in South Bend come this weekend.
Yeah, Galatson, that's going to be an awesome game. I personally believe that Notre Dame still has the keys, the defense, the trenches to knock off A&M this week. How about the Vanderbilt Commodores? Those guys are looking good, Jesse. I think Vanderbilt could be a Diego Pavia at quarterback, by the way, against South Carolina, number 11 in the country. Vanderbilt's kind of scary.
They are scary. Those are one of those teams when they come into your home that you want to make sure that you're clicking on all cylinders. You don't want to bite the cheese and think about too good for yourself. But Lenore Sellers is a little bit above. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and I like him at that quarterback position for South Carolina.
Yeah, Coach, anything different?
Well, I thought when I walked on the field before he had his jersey on, because I saw him in person last year when they played this game, I thought he was a defensive lineman. I mean, he's a huge human being, and he's a great athlete.
Yeah, Florida at number 3 LSU. We heard that take from Lee Sterling. Again, I'm not going to disagree with Lee. I think there's a very good chance you see there Florida on the road against the Tigers. Brian Kelly should have the advantage in that one. Arkansas on the road against Ole Miss. Coach, you mentioned this one off the air a little bit. Any chance for the Hogs?
You know, they played them well through the years, and so they're close enough. There's a rivalry there. I see it being a shootout.
I think so. Jesse, this could be an Ole Miss team that after last week they proved with the win against Kentucky, monkey off their back, that actually contends for the top of the SEC.
No, absolutely. You talk about a hot toddy out there at Ole Miss. You definitely like what they're doing. That offense is very explosive. You know they're going to pass the ball down the football field. So Arkansas better bring their A game when this thing can get out of hand.
Haynes King, Georgia Tech, what do you think?
Sneaky.
Ooh.
Sneaky.
Okay.
He's a sneaky quarterback because he's going to run the ball multiple times a game. And so now you have to account for 11 guys on offense. The quarterback's not going to sit in the pocket. He's going to definitely tuck in and run. And that gives your defense, your defense in Clemson, a tough matchup each and every week.
Yeah, Coach, this is a Clemson team that I still think could be in the college football playoff, probably will, but Georgia Tech's a stalwart in their way this year.
Well, yeah, I think Clemson's very talented. You have to worry about with the quarterback from Georgia Tech. You got to worry about him staying healthy, because I was looking at some stuff online and it was talking about him being probable, but that was his biggest problem last year. He ran the ball enough that he didn't stay healthy and he was injured. So he has to stay healthy for Georgia Tech to move forward.
I think so. They got a really good shot this week. The slate is here. We're finally opening up more of these conference matchups as we look down the SEC, the ACC, and the like. Even the Big 12 with a couple big games on Friday night. And man, I really want to shout out once again Lee Sterling. I think want to make sure we stay on the good side.
With all due respect, we want to make sure we get that out there to Lee.
One Lee Sterling this week. That will do it for us here with College Football Kickoff. And it's a wrap on today's show. It's presented by Coca-Cola. But we're just getting started. Next week, Auburn gets the chance to prove themselves again, and they can do it against Oklahoma. A little bit of homecoming for Jackson Arnold. And how far will some teams fall after this week? Same time, same set, same unapologetic football energy. Big thanks to Coach Gary Patterson, the Hall of Famer, and Jesse Holley for bringing the heat. And to you, that's right, for riding shotgun with us. Enjoy all the action this weekend. Stay locked in, stay fired up, and we'll see you next Thursday right here on Fire TV.